Bonjour, good morning everybody. I've got a big treat for you today. I am here with Jessica Buchanan from 1,000 Flowers. And so I told you about her yesterday. I mentioned that you were a former student from the Grasse Institute of Perfumery. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
I graduated in 2007.
2007. And Jessica now has her own brand. You have your own workshop here. Hello, Tana93. It's nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. I am here with Jessica Buchanan from 1,000 Flowers, and she is going to talk a little bit about her background, and we're going to talk a little bit about maybe some green chemistry as well. Is that right?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so tell me, how did you go from Grasse Institute of Perfumery to having your own workshop?
Well, I've always been independent.
Okay.
So even in Canada, before I came to Grasse, I had started my company there, but I was more based in aromatherapy and had taken a certification program, 1-year training, and worked in natural cosmetics for a number of years before I decided I'm really interested in perfumery.
Okay.
And it was starting with natural perfume and started for a few years, and I launched 4 natural perfumes. And then I thought, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business person, I have to stay competitive, and so I better do some training. So that's when I decided to come to Grasse, to the Grasse Institute, because it's taught in English as well, because I didn't speak French. And take
Do you speak French now?
I do speak French now.
Okay, so
yes.
being
it
here...
was necessary to learn, especially to open a boutique. It was necessary to learn. All my suppliers speak French. I mean, it was necessary. So the school. So I came for the school 1-year program. Then I did a couple of internships in couple of the big companies here.
Can you name them?
Yeah, sure. I was at Robertet and at Man.
Oh, Robertet and Man.
Man was the longest one. I was there for 3 months, and it was absolutely fascinating to see inside the big, the industrial perfume industry that is Grasse, too, which we don't know that much about Grasse. We think of just rose fields and jasmine fields.
Yes.
And in actuality, it's really an industrial town with huge, big companies, factories, family run is still, that are, some can be all close to 200 years old.
Wow. Can you give me a little bit more about Grasse's history? You seem to know a lot about Grasse.
Yeah, sure. So Grasse used to be part of Italy, actually, and it was an industrial town since the earliest records around 1100, but it was much more in cattle and in livestock, farming, agricultural, and leather. So everybody sort of talks about that. At the beginning, it was a tanning town, tanneries. So it probably smelled really bad. And so some of the earlier ways that plants and leather were connected is they used some of the native plants in the tanning process. So lentisque and myrtle, for example, were used in the tanning process. And they would also impart a color and a scent to the leather. And then the next step would have been Catherine of Medici, who came. Okay. And so that was 1500s.
Let me stop you for 1 second and ask, why did the leather process or the tanning process smell? What was it about it?
Well, it's all the things they use in the tanning process. So there's urine, it's just the skins. These are fresh skins of animals, so they're being treated and fermented, and it's not a very nice smelling.
Okay. How did the town go from smelling bad to smelling
leather into scented leather? So scented leather gloves. Which was something that was definitely for the nobility and the upper class. I see. And so connected with Catherine of Medici, who married the French king. So she came from Florence. With a perfumer, with their tradition of toiletries and cosmetics and perfume. Right. So
this was in the 1500s? Okay, 1500s.
Yeah, so
got it.
It started. So gradually, the plants of perfume surpassed the leather in importance, in industrial importance, and so parallels with also Louis the 14th, in the 1600s, and bathing started to come back in, and the style of perfumery changed. It wasn't so much like strong musks and things like that to use to cover bad smells, because there was quite a period of time where people didn't bathe.
Right.
So
I'm glad we're not in that period now. I'm glad we're in the bathing period.
Yes, exactly. Because with the bathing period, then we got into the florals and the lighter, fresher, the Esperide or the eau de cologne from, early 1700s from Cologne, but still connected with perfumery.
Okay, so before we were using heavier scents to cover up smells or to counter smells, and when bathing came into play, all of a sudden we started to play with fresher, lighter
and florals,
smells and florals.
Yeah.
Okay,
and so then of course the idea too of the fact that Grasse is a microclimate. So some of these plants like the roses and jasmine grow well here,
right?
And the conditions, it's a microclimate, so the conditions actually have created really amazing raw materials for perfumery.
Wonderful. Well, it's nice to hear what makes Grasse special. I've already been exposed to just a lot of neat things that make this town what it is. Before we move on, I want to say hi to people. I want to say hi to journalista Sylvia Lorenko. It is good to see you. Hi, Mohammed Dre. I'm bad at some of these handles. Forgive me. Mohammed Dre's... I'll work on that later. And Britta Cox, it's nice to see you. Hi, Britta. And then we have a Soapy Studio Treasures. Thank you so much for joining. My guest is Jessica Buchanan. We're in Grasse right now, and she heads up 1,000 Flowers. This is her company. She's about to share a little bit about what she does, but if you guys have questions, feel free to ask, because we have a perfumer right here who can get them answered for you. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now with your company.
Sure. I'd like to say hi to everybody as well who's joined us. Thanks for joining us. This is my first time doing live, by the way, so this is all new for me.
And she's doing an amazing job. I think she's going to take my job.
No, not at all. So to talk a little bit about my project, since Grasse and perfumery school, and so I came to go to school. Thought I'd just finish and go back to Canada and continue with what I was doing, but I'm actually still here. So that was 12 years ago, and I decided, really because of the history of Grasse and the expertise for the raw material production, that all the other, the master perfumers that are here, the cosmetics, it's a concentration of expertise here, and it's a beautiful climate. So I decided it was logical to stay here and develop my career as a perfumer here. So I had my own private lab for a number of years.
Okay.
And in 2017, I decided, actually this beautiful little spot came up available, and I sort of thought, wow, I sort of dreamed about a little boutique atelier for a long time as part of developing a brand, because I'm a business person too, like I'm an entrepreneur, so I always think ahead, have to develop the brand and the identity of what I'm doing. And so that's why I did this, and opened in the fall of 2017, and so this is the second summer season.
Excellent.
So I have my perfume, the organ.
Yes,
here.
we have the perfume organ behind us. Why do they call it an organ?
Because of the connection with music. So Jean-Carl so people who are quite familiar with perfumery might know about Jean-Carl, or the Jean-Carl method of learning perfumery.
Okay.
So he was a perfumer, master perfumer in Grasse in the 40s, developed the first perfumery school and a system of teaching vocabulary of perfume. So that was teaching perfumery via a vocabulary that people shared, so that we could have a shared language to discuss perfumery. And for him, because he was a fan of music, this is like, it's notes, right? And it's because it's like an organ, the instrument.
Right, I'm going to give you guys a good look at this because it is really nice. Hold on one second here. We're going to flip the camera around. So this is Jessica's perfume organ. You can see all the fragrances that are there. Very, very cool.
And this organ was actually built for me by a friend. So everyone can have their own style of organ. Mine, this is one that was built by a friend for me for a surprise, for a birthday present a number of years ago. And it's made out of pallet wood, actually, so it's recycled wood. And so it's got a bit of a story. It's a bit sentimental, but the concept is the same for all the organs. It's the idea is that you have access. You can see all your raw materials. If they're flat on a table, it's much harder to find. We have a system of organizing them. Mine is, for the most part, alphabetical, and then I have some groupings inside. I have all my sandalwood materials in one spot. If you don't see, there's another separate little organ over to the side as well. I have all my musks together. So we develop our own system of organizing.
Right, it's like chemists have their periodic table, you have your perfume organ.
Sure, yeah, but a little more freedom there than the periodic table.
Right.
But still, same idea. It's a matter of organizing and structure, having a structure. Basically.
Right. And you mentioned a little bit about green chemistry before we got on camera. Mm-hmm. How do you use green chemistry in what you do?
Well, I'm implementing, because green chemistry is something, or white biotechnology is another term for the same kind of idea.
That's a new one for me. I haven't heard of that one yet.
It's
white
really
biotechnology?
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
And so the idea is that there's green chemistry where there can be awareness of energy consumption, waste management, or limiting waste completely. It's basically making chemistry, organic chemistry, which is used to create synthetic molecules or synthesized molecules.
Okay.
Cleaning it up. So the old school way might have been a little bit less ecological or ecologically conscious, right? So that's part of it. Okay. The other thing is white biotechnology is using, and I'm not a chemist, so I know just the basic idea, right? Mm-hmm. And it's using bacteria's fermentation, that sort of thing, to create molecules, rather than in a lab doing all the different chemical reactions and so on to arrive at it. It's still chemical reactions, but it's a different way of doing it. And it could be considered natural because we're using bacteria and living things to create the final product, the final molecule. Right. There's also other things where, because I know people talk a lot about in perfumery, starting out from petrochemical molecules, and that's a reason to not use synthetic materials or synthetic molecules. So what is happening now is, rather than using petrochemical molecules as a source, they can use terpenes, which are coming from different trees, or resins of different plant trees, basically, that produce the resins that have the terpenes, using those as a starting point. So you still end up with a synthetic molecule, but it's starting from a natural molecule, which is not coming from a petrochemical source.
Interesting. Okay, so we're getting like a derivative, but it's coming from maybe an organism, for example, right? In this case,
it's not coming from an organism. Okay. In the bacteria sense, is that they're used in a process of creating a finished synthetic molecule.
Right.
Synthetic also is, it kind of has a bad rap. And part of it, when I first came for perfumery school, I was opposed to synthetics. It had to be natural. Natural was good, synthetic was bad. The more I've learned, the more I realize that that's one huge big brush, that we're brushing a big subject. There's lots of different categories of synthetics, and a lot of them we could change the word synthetic to say synthesized. And synthesized means you have a molecule that exists in nature, for example, like linalool, for example. It exists in lots of essential oils. It can be isolated, and you have a natural isolate that's coming from an essential oil, for example, or it can be synthesized.
Right.
So it's a synthetic created in a lab, but it's the same molecule as the one that exists in nature. So it's a synthesized. So that's where, in perfumery, that's how the synthetics started. The chemists were working really hard to synthesize natural molecules, like vanillin, for example. It was one of the first in vanilla. So could they synthesize this one important molecule? And they did. So that changed perfumery.
Right.
What our palette really is. And if you use one single molecule, it's very different than the whole composition of the natural.
Interesting. Wow, that's fascinating. So what you have here is both natural and synthetic, then, given that.
Yep. Okay, and I'm changing to green chemistry or white biotechnology produced molecules as much as I can, because there's a couple of big houses, perfume manufacturers, like raw material manufacturers, who are developing that side of their production more and more. These products cost more than the purely synthetic ones, but it's really nice to have that.
That's really exciting to be a part of that, right? While everybody's evolving the way they're synthesizing things.
it's fast. I find it fascinating.
I think it sounds really, really incredible. Let's go to the camera here and see if we have some questions. We have Tona93 that says, wow, green chemistry is so interesting to learn. It is, right? It's really fascinating. To be honest, I didn't really know much about it. So thank you so much for walking me through this introduction.
Sure.
And then you said you were working on a few things. And I think before we close out, I wanted to know, what are you working on? Is there anything that you want to share with people? Maybe just some sort of creation and some of the themes?
Sure.
Okay.
So I've actually, it was meant to be launched last spring, but these things take time, and it's, creating a fragrance sometimes it's really hard to know when to stop. So because it's like a painting or a book or any other piece of music, you want to keep doing tiny little modifications until it's perfect. So anyway, very soon I'll be launching a fragrance called Fleur Verte. So green flower. And it's going to be, I decided to really take it in an eau de cologne direction. So lots of citrus, lots of bergamot, but with a side of lily. Like, not the heavy, stargazer, the ones that are really sort of heavy, give you a headache. It's more these sort of light green lilies with a little bit of lily of the valley as well. So that's what I'm hoping to launch in the next month, basically.
Wonderful. And if we check out your site or your Instagram, how are we able to catch up and see when you actually release it?
I'll let everyone know on Instagram and Facebook.
Wonderful. Okay, great. What I'll do is I'll put your information into a post so people know how to find you and we can check your stuff out. And I think that's about it. Do we have any questions from everyone? If not, what we'll do is we'll close out. You can also ask me questions later and I will run them past Jessica and try to get you guys answers, okay? All right, sounds good. Take care, you guys.
Everybody.
Bye.